Muzafar, Sherif's and Solomon Asch's conformity experiment. In 1936 did Muzafar Sherif a little experiment. He had students in a completely dark room, and a few meters of them far away was then a light dot for 2 seconds, and due to the optical illusion, the autokinetic effect, which means that a light dot in the darkness seems to move, the people were then saying, I saw it moving for 1 inch, 2 inches, 5 or 10 inches. And after doing that a couple of times with rounds, they had then set on something, and the person doing that experiment was always saying 6, 6, 6, 6 inches. Another person might had another number, but they then stayed on their numbers, and they were a bit diverse. Some people were saying 1 inch, other people 10 inches. That was the setup. Then they made the experiment again, this time in groups together. And there was sitting together the person who said always it was moving 1 inch, another person saying 3 inches, and another person saying 10 inches. And after doing that, then the 3 people together, always hearing the results of the other people, they then started to find a middle ground. They started to say then all the time it's 2.5 or 3.5, whatever. They found then a middle way between the extremes. And they were all convinced, and or all then saying, the experiment and the book doesn't say what, they were all saying the middle way 3.5. Another experiment, Solomon Asch, 1951. He had a bunch of people were sitting, this time with the lamps on, in a room, and all in a row should they say which of the 3 lines has the same length as the other one. It was a simple task. They always could find which one has the same length. And the first rounds they said all the correct answers, but then suddenly in a round, these were Confederates, they said intentionally the wrong answer. And it was now looked, the test person was set at the end, so that all the persons were saying the wrong answer, and then the person should be at its turn and say what the answer is, what the person was thinking. And the book is then giving a suggestion what the test person might think about the other people is, did the people misunderstood the task? Did they misunderstood the task? What is going on? Why don't we see it suddenly? And the result of the experiment was that in 37% of the times that person then said the wrong result. This is the result which the other people had said, knowing that the result is false. 37% of the times. 25% of the times they did not. They still said what they knew was right. And 50% of the people were changing. Sometimes we went along with the other people with the wrong answer, sometimes not. So that are the results. Ask why. Some people said when the things like in the book said that they didn't want to feel crazy or conspicuous or like a misfit. And that is according to Social Psychology by Sharon S. William and Saul M. Kesson, a United States book from 1996, on the pages 334 and 335 and 336. The positions and views expressed are the ones of the source and don't necessarily align with our own or with the ones of the entities spoken of. Hi and welcome. I'm trying to learn social psychology. Today, Muzafar Sherif's and Solomon Asch's conformity experiments, and after we've done that, we're going to do neck stretching. And if you participate in the neck stretching, then it's at your own risk, and we read that already in a previous part. The early classics in 1936, Muzafar Sherif published a classic laboratory study of how norms develop in small groups. His method, also described in chapter 1, was ingenious. Male students who believed they were participating in a visual perception experiment sat in a totally darkened room. So we're having students, male students, 1936, experiment by Muzafar Sherif, sitting in a dark room. 15 feet in front of them, completely dark room, totally dark room. 15 feet in front of them, a small dot of light appeared for 2 seconds, after which subjects were asked to estimate how far it had moved. 3 meters away from the light dot, 2 seconds there, and it is asked how far it is moving. Moving while it is visible, not on and then later on a second time on somewhere else. I think actually on and it appears to move. This procedure was repeated several times. All the subjects didn't realize it, the dot of light always remained motionless. The movement they thought they saw was, in reality, an optical illusion known as the autokinetic effect. In darkness, a stationary point of light appears to move, sometimes erratically in various directions. The autokinetic effect. we tried to mention it in our presentation, the autokinetic effect. And that was because of an optical illusion, the so-called autokinetic effect. It appears in darkness that a light dot is moving. It can be theoretically in various, I don't know what theoretically means. It can be in various directions. At first, subjects sat alone and reported their judgment to the experimenter. After several trials, Muzafar Sherif found that subjects settled in on their own stable perceptions of movement with some estimates ranging from 1 to 10 inches. During the next 3 days, subjects returned to participate in 3-person groups. As before, lights were flashed and one by one announced their estimates. And at the beginning, the people were not completely sure of how the dot was moving, but after a few trials, they saw when their optical illusion going at like a few centimeters or a few centimeters more to the side. But they stayed with what they were estimating. During the next 3 days, subjects returned to participate in 3-person groups. As before, lights were flashed and subjects one by one announced their estimates. As shown in figure 9.2, initial estimates varied considerably, but subjects later converged on a common perception. Eventually, each group established its own set of norms. Anything else here? Maybe later on. A classic case of suggestibility. This graph taken from Muzafar Sherif's study shows how 3 subjects' estimates of the apparent movement of light gradually converges. Before the subjects came together, their perception varied considerably. Once in groups, the subject conformed to the norm that had developed. At the beginning, one person said 8 inches, another 1 inch, and after 3 sessions, they all had the opinion that it was moving 2.5. They had met somewhere in the middle. The third person was already somewhere in the middle. Okay, that is the first experiment. That is Muzafar Sherif's experiment. Maybe you're going to do a singular presentation just about Muzafar Sherif's, but we're going to make probably one about Solomon Asch's and Muzafar Sherif's at the same time. Maybe even 3 presentations. Yes, some 15 years after Sherif's demonstrations, Solomon Asch 1951 constructed a very different scenario for testing how people's beliefs affected each other. To appreciate what Solomon Asch did, imagine yourself in the following situation. You sign up for a psychological experiment, and when you arrive, you find 6 other subjects waiting around a table. Soon after you take an empty seat, the experimenter explains that he is interested in the ability to make visual discriminations. As an example, he asks you and the others to indicate which of 3 comparison lines is identical in length to a standard line. It seems easy enough. The experimenter then says that after each set of lines is shown, you and the others should take turns announcing your judgments out loud in the order of your seating position. Beginning on the left, the experimenter asks the first person, how many were there? 6? 6. Beginning on the left, the experimenter asks the first person for the judgment. Seeing that you are the next to last position, you patiently await your turn. The opening... I'm just trying to understand what the person is doing, what the person is waiting on. The person is just waiting to announce what they have to say. They are not waiting to look what the other person is doing. That happens without that the person has planned it in, so they are not consciously waiting on what the results of the other people are. They are just waiting until they are at their turn. The opening moments pass uneventfully. The discriminations are clear and everyone agrees on the answers. On the third set of lines, however, the first subject selects what is quite clearly the wrong line. What happened? Did he suddenly lose his mind, his eyesight, or both? Before you have a chance to figure this one out, the next 4 subjects choose the same wrong line. Now what? Feeling as if you have entered the twilight zone, you wonder if you misunderstood the task, and you wonder what the others will think if you have enough to disagree. It's your turn now. You rub your eyes and take another look. What do you see? Better yet, what do you do? Figure 9.3 gives an idea of a bind in which Asch's subjects found themselves caught between the need to the right and the desire to be liked. As you may suspect, by now the other subjects were Confederates and had been trained to make incorrect judgments on 12 out of 18 presentations. There seems little doubt that the real subjects knew the correct answer. In a control group, There they made judgments in isolation, they made almost no errors. Yet Solomon Asch's subjects went along with the incorrect majority, about 37% of the times. Incorrect 37% of the times they went with. So they said, I mentioned in the previous part, but we didn't say the number, 37% went with it. 63% did not went with it. 63% did, even though 5 people or 6 people even before them said a clearly wrong answer, stayed with what way for. Not everyone conformed, of course. About 25% of the subjects refused to agree on any of the incorrect judgment. So a quarter on any. 50% went along on at least half of the critical presentations. 50% on half. Quarter always. And 50% on half. These are 25% overall. 25% always. These are 50%. There's still 15% missing. The remaining subjects conformed on an occasional biases. Occasional biases, okay. Similarly, high levels of conformity were observed when Asch's study was repeated 30 years later. And Larson made a similar experiment in the 1990s, which showed similar results. Okay, we don't have time left anymore. I think we understood the experiment. We read it now a second time. We were asked which line is the same length as the other one, and suddenly all the other people were saying the wrong one to look if a person is following along or not. Maybe we're going to do actually 2 presentations about each of these experiments and then another one about both. But I think we understand what we're saying, but I want to say it pretty clearly what we're saying here as suggestions that what possibly could be one's fault in these situations. And then the rest also. But now let's take one look what confederate means. Confederacy, confectionery, relating to confections, one whose occupation is to make or sell sweetmeats or confections. Okay, confederacy. Confederatio, fedus, a league, federal, a contract between 2 or more persons. Bodies of men or states, combined in support of each other. In some act or enterprise, a league, compact, alliance, the persons, states, or nations united by a league. Confederate, united in a league, allied by treaty, engaged in a confederacy, pertaining to a confederacy, one who is united with others. In a league, a person or nation engaged in a confederacy, an ally, an accomplice. Confederate, confederating, to unite in a league or confederacy. Confederation, confederation, a confederacy, a league alliance with parties to league, states united by confederacy, of or belonging to confederation. Confer, conferre, conferring, confero, I bring together. Confero, I bring together. Compare, bestow, consult, to give or bestow, with, on or upon, before the recipient. Confer by first from bestow. Okay, it means allies, at least something in that direction. We're gonna look in the book if that means something like they have spoken to each other and made a treaty behind closed doors, that they have scripted what we're doing there, if that means confederacy. But we now know in what direction the word confederacy is going. It means something like allies, partners, people who have made a contract to work in a specific way together or treaty. Okay, that was the social psychology. If you were here for social psychology, you can go directly to the next part of social psychology. They will continue with Solomon Asch's experiment. If you stay here and participate in the next stretching minutes, have a good and stable standing leg. Reef in, arms up, and reach with the fingertips to the sides as far as you can. Out and down. In the front. Reach with the fingertips far back. Down. Pull up, shoulders back, breathe in. And out, bring the head out to one side. And the head down to the shoulder. Breathe in, lift the gaze. And out of the other side. Breathe again in. Out, chin down to the shoulder. in the other, and again out one side, breathe again in, and out, and circle the head over, breathe again in, out, and circle the head over, back into the middle. Have the feet standing together. No, not yet. Have the palms together and the elbows together. Breathe in and reach up. Out and down. In and up. Out and down. Now have the feet standing together. Intertwine the fingers behind the back. Roll up, shoulders back. Breathe in. And out, bring the head over to one side. Head down to the shoulder and pull the arms down to the ground. Breathe in, lift the gaze. Out to the other side. Breathe again in. Out, chin down to the shoulder and pull the hands down to the ground. Breathe and lift the gaze. Back into the middle. Legs a bit apart. Intertwine the fingers behind the back. Bring them over to one side. Roll up, shoulders back. Breathe in. Out, bring the head over to one side. To the side with the hands out, chin down to the shoulder and pull the other shoulder in and down. Breathe and lift the gaze. Bring the head over to the other side. Hands over to the other side. Breathe again in. Out, chin down to the shoulder. Pull the other shoulder in and down. Breathe and lift the gaze. Into the middle. Have the feet standing together. One arm behind the back. Breathe and the other one up. And out, bring the head over. Breathe in. Out, the arm down. Hand behind the back. In other arm up. Out, bring the head over. Breathe in. Out, the arm down. In both arms up. Breathe out, lean back, out the chest to the sky. In and up. Out and back, out the chest. In and up. Intertwine the fingers and reach high. Breathe out, reach in front, hold the back. In and up, change the intertwine. Out and in front. In and up. Lean back with long arms, draw the shoulder blades together, elbows down. In and up. Out and back with long arms, draw the shoulder blades together, elbows down. In and up. Out the arms down. In the arms up. Hands to touch and lower them down to heart center. That was the neck stretching. I thank you very much. And until next time.